Welcome everybody to a very special video here today. As you can see, we have a guest on. It is Neil from the Devil's State of Mind podcast, and that means we are going to be talking about the New Jersey Devils today. Neil, I know you're a huge Devils fan, follow this team extremely closely, so there is no one I'd rather talk to about New Jersey and what's going on with them this offseason than you. Thank you so much for coming on, and can't wait to talk some Devils hockey.
John, it's an absolute pleasure to be on here. Big fan of what you guys do, and I appreciate you guys having me on. And like I said before we started, I'm just excited to talk some Devils hockey because that's the thing that excites me the most when because I'm a big talker. I have the gift of gab, a lot of people will say.
Yeah.
But definitely when it comes to the New Jersey Devils and, describing them obviously, and with the Devil's State of Mind podcast, I get to live the dream. So I'm excited to be on here and talking with you, my friend.
Awesome. So, well, there's a few different things that have happened here with this Devils offseason, but first I want to kind of talk about where New Jersey is at right now to start. Yeah. They've been in a rebuild kind of for the last few years, and they're
an understatement.
They're a team that's trying to move out of that. You can see that they're trying to take that next step. We saw what the LA Kings did last year, I think, is kind of a good blueprint for a lot of these other teams that are in that similar spot where they were able to make that big jump and make the playoffs last season. I think New Jersey, Detroit, Ottawa are three Eastern Conference teams that are in a similar spot to where LA was before last year and now want to take that same kind of jump. Right. And then New Jersey, just, do you think that they're a team that is getting close to being able to do that? Or do you think there's still some work to be done?
Well, because I think the big question for a lot of us going into this season is this team good enough right now where it is to make the playoffs? Because that's obviously the next main goal for this Devils organization is to get back into the playoffs for the first time since 2017, 2018, and for only the second time in the last 11 seasons. I think when you look at the moves that Tom Fitzgerald made, they acquired Vitek Vanacek from Washington. They signed Andre Palat. They signed Brendan Smith. They traded for John Marino. They certainly upgraded, in my opinion, the defense, made it a little bit bigger, a little bit more experience. I look at a guy like Marino, who's played in the playoffs each of the first 3 seasons of his career. I look at Brendan Smith, over a decade in the league and has a ton of playoff experience in his own right. And then you have Andre Palat, who is a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, has been in each of the last 3 Stanley Cup finals, and has played in 4 in his very impressive career. So from an experience standpoint, I think the Devils definitely did a very good job of getting some veteran guys in here. Maybe not people who have the biggest voice in the room, but certainly guys that can lead by example and help this team grow and take that next step. And then also the Devils hit a home run by signing the most coveted, let's say, coach in the NHL at this moment, and that was Andrew Brunette, coming over from Florida after he did a tremendous job as the interim head coach of the Florida Panthers, and now coming over as an associate coach. And I'll say very quickly that with Lindy Ruff's contract coming up at the end of the year, I think there's a very good chance that Andrew Brunette becomes the next head coach of the New Jersey Devils. Whether Lindy Ruff stays on as an advisor, like some rumors had come out about that before, or if the Devils just let him go altogether completely. Because I know that several Devils players, several key guys, Jack Hughes in particular, spoke a lot of praise about playing for Lindy Ruff. So there might be some interest in keeping him. But when you look at this Devils team, if everything goes right, and that's really hard to say considering how the Devils seasons have gone the last couple of years, where it seems like whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Yeah. But if everything goes right, if goaltending is better, if we're getting more offense, if our defense is even more solid than it was last year, then you're looking at a Devils team that could be one of the surprises of the NHL and could certainly be a wild card team. I just think that the Metropolitan Division is still way too tough, even with some of the aging cores in our division. Yep. It's still going to be very difficult to get into that top 3. So if you're looking at it and saying, if the Devils make the playoffs, where do you see them? I see them as the 7th or 8th seed, as a wild card team and things like that. But I'll be very realistic with you, John, to say I still think that we are another year away. I think that this team is going to be better. I think they're going to end up finishing closer to making the playoffs, but I still think they finish outside of it. I certainly don't expect us to finish towards the bottom of the NHL again. I don't. There's just too much on the line going into the season for that to be the case. And I mean, look, I know Devils fans don't want to go through another year of not making the playoffs and things like that. And by the time we hit April, we already know that the season is over.
Yeah.
And you don't want to jump the gun before the season even starts. I mean, we're talking in July. Who knows what's going to happen by the time we hit training camp in late September, early October. So a lot can change. And I know that Tom Fitzgerald said that he is still not done. His phone is still ringing. He's still looking at options to improve this team. And obviously we didn't get the big prize free agents. That was basically, it almost felt like that they were just going to be handed to us with everything that was saying, but that's not how the business always works. But I think at the end of the day, this is a team that is going to be better. I think they are going to be interesting to watch. You could see how they've been built, not just for the present, but also for the future. You see what we have coming up, and there's a lot to be excited about, and there's a lot to look forward to. And I'm very curious to see how this team responds after last season. But I think this is a team that probably is just another year away from making the playoffs. But hockey's a magical, unpredictable sport. You never know what can happen. And you never know when a team like the Devils could get on a hot streak and really make a run at it. Kind of similar to what you saw in 2017, 2018.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the NHL is that every year there's always a surprise somewhere. And, who says it couldn't be you potentially,
Exactly.
That's how hockey works. But I got to ask you about Johnny Gaudreau, because opening day of free agency, I was convinced that he was going to the Devils all day. I'm like, Flyers will screw it up. Chuck Fletcher's a terrible GM. He's not going to get him.
He was the Devils assistant GM actually a couple of years ago, and I'm very relieved he's not with the Devils organization.
Yeah, you're anymore. Lucky he's not with the organization anymore.
Maybe he's part of the reason why we're still in a rebuild.
But I knew he wasn't going to go to the Flyers just because the Flyers would always fumble that bag.
Yeah.
But I thought it was between the Islanders and the Devils, and I thought for sure he was going to New Jersey. And then Elliot Friedman, later in the evening, dinner time that night, tweets, Gaudreau is going to Columbus. And my jaw hit the floor, and I was just like, what? So how is that, as a Devils fan, with your team being in the mix with that? Yeah. How is that the shock and the surprise of that when he goes to Columbus of all places?
There's a lot that goes into this, because a lot of us in Devils Nation have been discussing over the last now almost week as to what went wrong. What could the Devils have done anything different to change the situation? But I don't know when this episode is going to come out, but I will tell you this. I listened to Spit and Chicklets, and their most recent episode was with Johnny Gaudreau. Yep. And they asked him straight up what the situation was on Wednesday for the whole free agency period. He said that it was very stressful. He said that it was really down to two teams. At first, he didn't specifically say which teams, but I think we all knew which teams he was referring to, the Devils and the Islanders. Yep. And he was, quote unquote, relieved that Columbus came in and gave him an offer. So that tells me right then and there that Johnny Gaudreau never had any intentions of being a New Jersey Devil. Mm-hmm. He wanted to be a Philadelphia Flyer. Yeah. If the Flyers had the money, he would have signed with them at 12 p.m. He would have signed at noon, and that would have been the end of it. That would have totally ended any speculation. And nobody in the NHL would look at it and question him about it either, because they'd say, okay, he's going to his hometown team. Now, are they in a position to have long-term success? No, but he gets to be the main guy in, playing for his hometown team. Yeah. But I think once Johnny Gaudreau realized that the Devils and Islanders, two rivals of the Flyers, particularly the Devils, once he knew that those were going to be his options at that time, he really realized at that moment that he kind of screwed himself. Because I think he was hoping that someone else would jump in, and Columbus jumped in with a very solid offer, 7 years, $9.5 million, which is good. I mean, to me, I think the money I think the fact that he took less money to go to Columbus tells you a lot more about Calgary than it really does about anybody else. I personally feel very bad for the Calgary Flames fans because I've spoken about this with Devils fans. Are we upset? Yes. Are we pissed off? Yeah. Do we feel like we were used? I felt like that for a while, but not anymore. But at the end of the day, he never wanted to come here. He would have come here if there really was no other option. And Gaudreau said that at some point, I think it was like 3:30, that he was pretty much dead set on, okay, I'm going to the New Jersey Devils. But I said this on my latest episode that I just posted this past Monday. I don't want guys on this team that don't want to be here.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't want a disgruntled superstar coming here reluctantly because we were quote unquote the best option and maybe the most logical one. Because, you know, when you look at the Islanders, who really surprised me by not making a single free agency move, they did trade for Romanov, which I actually thought was a really good move on their part. But for them to not do anything, even after not getting Johnny Gaudreau, was kind of surprising. But Lou Lamoriello, who I have a lot of experience with, especially over the lenient years at the end of his time in New Jersey, I hate to say it, the game has passed him by. He is really struggling in the salary cap era. I mean, he really has with trying to get it. He just didn't have enough money. $11 million is still a decent amount. Do not get me wrong, but he did not have the money to give Johnny Gaudreau the long-term deal. I don't even think, though, if the Islanders had a better offer, I still don't think he ends up with the Islanders either. Because again, I think the whole feeling of betraying your hometown team by going to one of its rivals, I think that played a part in all of this. I think it played a part in him feeling uncomfortable going there. And I know everybody wants to bring up the speculation about Gaudreau's wife, which I totally get because she is a doctor and obviously she works in Philadelphia, but Columbus also has a really, really good program there that she can work at. But I think the reality of it all is simply this. He wanted to play on the East Coast and he wanted to play with the Flyers. Once he didn't get that, he went with the next best thing that was not going to be angry to Flyers fans. Are Flyers fans upset they didn't get Gaudreau? Yes, especially knowing that Gaudreau wanted to go there. And yes, I do think Chuck Fletcher should be fired because he is a horrible, horrible general manager.
He's brutal.
The Flyers don't have any future or any present right now. I have no idea where they're going. And that, as a Devils fan, is totally fine by me. Let's leave that. But the Johnny Gaudreau situation, it is very difficult because the last several months, John, the team that has been rumored the most for Johnny Gaudreau is the New Jersey Devils. And we have the cap space. We have an up-and-coming team with a lot of talent, a guy who's going to be a superstar in this league in Jack Hughes. And it still just wasn't enough for Gaudreau to feel excited and wanting to come here. And as much as that sucks, you know what? It opens the door for other things. Like we were still able to get Andre Palat. Not the biggest fan of the contract, but you know what? The Devils have enough money now and in the future to not completely worry about this deal really moving forward. You know, they still have to re-sign Jesper Bratt, which I know they will, especially now that he went to salary arbitration. It's good because now they have a pretty good idea as to what number they can work on. And I think over the next week or two, we're probably going to get something and hopefully a contract signed. They were able to acquire John Marino at $4.4 million for the next 5 seasons, which I actually really like because he's 25 years of age and he's a good right shooting defenseman. And I pointed this out in my last episode, John, and I'll point it out here. Look at the free agents in 2023 and 2024. Now, obviously, a lot can change between now and those summers, but there are a lot of really exciting, really, really superstar level players that will be available. 2023 in particular, you have Patrick Kane, David Pastrnak, Vladimir Tarasenko, even though he'll be 32, is still a very, very talented player in his own right. And a couple of other guys that I can't remember off the top of my head. And then you go into 2024, you have Austin Matthews. Who knows where the Leafs are going to be by that point? Financially and everything like that. Could Austin Matthews decide to go somewhere else? Yeah, absolutely. There's always the possibility with that. You have like a guy like Steven Stamkos, although I think he'll probably retire at the end of that contract rather than continue to play. And he's a center, and the Devils, as they proved in the draft, do not really need any other centers right now. But my point to it all is simply that the Devils will have more options moving forward. Johnny Gaudreau was not the be-all and end-all. Does it suck that we didn't get him? Yes. But considering all of the information we know now, yes, it sucks the Devils got outbid, but the reality is that he would have taken the lesser money deal with us if Columbus didn't step in, because at that point, Gaudreau's best offer was the New Jersey Devils up until about 4:30. And I give Columbus a lot of credit that they wanted to do this, because as we've seen with Columbus before, the amount of stars that have come to Columbus and then left. Or, we're homegrown, like Artemi Panarin, Sergei Bobrovsky, different guys like that. Even Rick Nash eventually, left. This is a guy that comes here that quote unquote was excited to come to Columbus. Now you have him. Now you're going to end up somehow sticking with Patrick Laine, although I don't know where the money's coming from, but I guess they're probably, I'm assuming Bukestad is going to be one of the guys that ends up getting moved at the end of it, but I don't know. I really, really don't know what's going to happen in Columbus, but they wanted to make a run at getting Johnny Gaudreau, and they were the ones that were successful. So it sucks because he's still in the division and we still have to play him 3 or 4 times. But does it move the needle for Columbus a lot? I would have to say no. I really, because they're still working out their rebuilding phase. Like they're not just beginning it, but they're not like at the point. But could they make the playoffs? As I just said before with the Devils, anything can happen. But as a Devils fan, we're disappointed, but we got a lot of other things to be excited about. And we still have cap for this year and also going into years moving forward. So there's going to be more opportunities, and we have to continue to make the New Jersey Devils a place where people want to come play, like Lou did back in the 90s and early 2000s. Make people excited to want to come to play for the New Jersey Devils. And I think that over time with, having success and hopefully building on this year, they can kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's still a lot to look forward to with the Devils, and they've got a lot of young pieces that are becoming an important part of this team. And they've got some more, with some of these draft picks. They drafted 2nd overall this past draft. And I really think that they wanted Slafkovsky. They wanted Wright to go to Montreal, and they wanted that big winger that they could get, that high-level goal scorer. But when Slafkovsky went off number 1, we knew that the Devils, I was live streaming during the draft, and I said the Devils are not going to take another center. They don't need another center. They don't need Shane Wright. And it immediately turned to defense. That, okay, they're going to take a D-man here. I just wasn't sure which one. Thought Simon Nemec was on the table, and I thought David Jiricek was on the table, and I didn't know which one.
I actually thought it was going to be Jiricek.
Yeah, I was thinking Jiricek.
Nothing against Nemec. I just said that considering all the rumors and reports we heard up to the draft, that if the Devils went defense, it sounded like Jiricek was going to be the guy. And I have nothing against Jiricek. I actually think he's going to be a very good defenseman in his own right. It's I had a funny feeling in the back of my mind that the Devils were going to end up having to take a defenseman.
Yeah.
So
they get Simon Nemec, and I'm wondering, how soon do you think that he's going to be able to make an impact? They got a defenseman in Luke Hughes, who's now playing at Michigan, and now they've got Simon Nemec, another very high draft pick D-man who looks like he's going to be a future star in the league. Obviously building a strong back end is extremely important to being a competitive, Stanley Cup level team. Look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, look at the Colorado Avalanche. These teams have elite defensemen. So, how soon do you think we're going to start to see the impact of drafting these young D-men who look like future stars in the league?
Well, let me go back to the first part that you mentioned, John, about the draft. What 110% the Devils wanted Slafkovsky. There was no question about it. And I think that's why the report about the Canadians were waiting to see if the Devils would call Montreal to try to move up, because I think Montreal knew it too. And I think that Montreal really wanted Slafkovsky as well. I don't doubt that. So I think, Ken Hughes looked at it and said, one of two things going to happen. We're either just going to take Slafkovsky, or the Devils are going to give us a deal that is so beneficial to us that we'd be stupid not to take it. So once Slafkovsky went 1, there was no way that Shane Wright was going 2. And I think Shane Wright knew that. And that's no disrespect to Shane Wright, because he's a very talented player, a guy who's going to be a franchise cornerstone for Seattle. And I will say this, him going to Seattle is perfect with him playing, they have that 1-2 punch. Like the Devils have the 1-2 punch of Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, center core. Look at the 1-2 punch long-term for Seattle. Matty Beniers and now Shane Wright. That's very good in my opinion. I think Seattle's building something that's going to be very exciting and very fun to watch. It's certainly getting Burakovsky to sign there long-term as well. So very, very good move by Ronnie Francis. But going back to the Devils, you knew at that point at number 2 that it was going to probably be defenseman. I think the only question was, were the Devils going to trade down and then take a defenseman? I think what happened was this. Number one, there was a report that came out that the Devils did indeed offer the 2nd overall pick to Calgary for Matthew Tkachuk, and the Flames said no. So once that, you knew that was off the table, I don't think anybody else behind the Devils was going to move up. I think everybody just wanted to play it out and see where it went. And so the Devils looked at it and said, look, Simon Nemec is the best player on our board, because I've said before, everybody's boards for the draft is different. I think Nemeth was the best player on the board at that moment. And the Devils decided, instead of, trading down and hoping that that guy is there, we will take Nemeth now. And, I was at the draft party in Asbury Park when the pick was announced. Mixed emotions, because I think everybody was just disappointed we didn't get Slavkovsky. But you look at Nemeth, this is a guy that has tremendous puck handling ability, not afraid to shoot the puck from the blue line, a guy who has a lot of experience playing against, older players and really had a good amount of success. He played in the Olympics with Slavkovsky and really proved himself, because Nemeth actually, we talk about Slavkovsky went up the draft board after the Olympics. Nemeth did the exact same thing. He moved up all of a sudden into the top 5, and everybody's saying, this is interesting. And I think the Devils, to just add on to what has already been an impressive, strong, long-term core of defensemen, just shows that the Devils' back end is going to be one of the toughest back ends to deal with for years to come. And I'm excited about Nemeth because I saw him play in the development camp this past week, and I really liked. He looked so confident, and he said to the Devils, "I want to come play North America right away." Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he goes to the Devils right away. It just means that he definitely will play with either the Devils or the Utica Comets in the AHL, which I think is good. And he'll certainly get an invite to training camp. And it'll be interesting to see if he's like Dawson Mercer last year, where first training camp, he does so well that the Devils would be dumb not to have him play in the NHL right away. And I think that could be a possibility if all things work out for Nemeth. But honestly, John, looking at it, completely and speaking to a lot of scouts, Nemeth seems like a guy that could potentially be the best player overall in this draft when it's all said and done. And they found like the perfect partner for Luke Hughes when they both come to the NHL. Because Luke Hughes, offensive, right shooting defenseman with a lot of speed. Nemeth, not as much offensive, but definitely a guy that can be the quarterback of a power play, be solid on the penalty kill, and could be that more defensive defenseman that could be a good balance for Luke Hughes. So I very much like the pick regardless, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. And it's really funny how when this offseason started, a lot of us were expecting we're going to get Slavkovsky and we're going to get Johnny Gaudreau, and it's going to be great. And instead, we end up with Simon Nemec and Andre Palat, which to me is not a bad, I guess you'd say, backup option to what we already have. But it's still a really, really good pick. And we can't crap on Nemec or anything like that until he actually plays in the league. So from this point forward, I don't want to hear people criticize the Devils, because the other thing is this: we had no control over not getting Slavkovsky. It's not like we decided not to draft him and he was there at number 2. He was just taken number 1 overall. There ain't nothing we could do about that. So what do? We take the best player that we feel is there. And why would we take Shane Wright? He's just going to be stuck on the 3rd line. Which I know that was beneficial for Alexis Lafreniere when he got drafted number 1 overall by the Rangers, and now is on the 3rd line, but has eventually moved up top 6, was on that kid line this past year. But I don't think Shane Wright, I think Shane Wright would have fit with how the Devils play. I just don't think that I think the Devils are going to say, we already have also a bunch of young centers in our system anyway that we feel good about. Let's go with something. Let's go with a right shooting defenseman instead. And I think that was honestly a really, really good good move by Fitzgerald nonetheless.
Yeah, I agree. I would have gone D there as well. And I think that was the right move. And yeah, I think there's a lot of a young talent to look forward to, and they're just adding to it, which is great to see, because this is a team that when these guys finally arrive, it's going to be a big arrival when they're all firing on all cylinders. Couple last things here. One, out of what the Devils have done this offseason, they've actually been more active trade wise than free agency. Really, their only big free agent signings were Palat and Smith. Right. And but they traded for Marino, they traded for Vanacek. They've been active in the trade market. I honestly think they're probably still being very active in the trade market and are probably 100%. Not done yet. We're still fairly early on in the summer. There might be probably more moves to be made for New Jersey and some other teams around the league. Yep. But out of everything that the Devils have done this offseason, what has been your favorite move so far as a Devils fan?
It's kind of like a tie basically, but I would say, the two moves that I like the most were obviously signing Ondrej Palat, because I had said throughout the end of last season going into the offseason that Palat would be a guy that would do really well coming to New Jersey Devils, a guy who is a clutch goal scorer, and a guy that can put up a decent amount of points on the top six when he's surrounded by talent. I mean, I'm not saying Palat's not talented in his own right. He certainly is. But look at the guys that he was playing with in Tampa Bay. Look at the guys he's going to be playing with in New Jersey. He is going to be able, like, if he's on the left side of Jack Hughes, that's a really, really good place for him to be, because he's a guy that is going to be able to really benefit from Jack Hughes's passing ability and skill and being able to go from there. And, what's interesting about the contract, because everybody's been so heavily focused on this contract for no reason other than the fact that it's $6 million a year for the next 5 years, is that there's a no trade clause for the first 3 years of the contract and then a modified no trade clause last 2 years. You know what that tells me more than anything else? That he wants to be here, that he doesn't want to be in a situation where if he gets another better option in a year or two, he'll immediately ask to be traded. I think he believes in where the Devils are going, and it gives him an opportunity to have a place where he is definitely going to be for the next couple of years, start a new part of his life with his family, and, come here. And I know Patrick Elias spoke to Palat and said nothing but great things. And Palat said he was really excited to come here. And granted, that's what basically every free agent or guy that gets traded to another team will say in their media availability and all that stuff. But I like the Palat signing a lot, or Palat, as everybody likes to jokingly say. But it's a really good move for a veteran presence for goal scoring. Is it enough to what we want on the top six? No, but it's better. It's better in that way. And I love the John Marino trade, because here's why. I love Ty Smith. I think that the Devils probably gave up on him a little bit too soon, because it's only been 2 seasons. But Ty Smith did have some value in the trade market. I think the Devils looked at an opportunity to acquire John Marino, who was really more of a cap dump for for Pittsburgh, because they needed to move some money around because of the new contracts they signed with Letang and Malkin. And they were able to bring in a guy, Marino, 25 years of age, already 3+ years of NHL experience, had the same amount of points had more points than Ty Smith, and Marino's a little bit older, a little bit more experienced. And also, you know what this does, John, that a lot of people are not talking about? What does this say about one of these 3 guys, Damon Severson, Ryan Graves, or Jonas Siegenthaler? This tells me that Damon Severson, who will be an unrestricted free agent next offseason, might be the guy that ends up getting dealt, and maybe perhaps during this offseason. And there, people are 50-50 on Severson, because, he'll do some great things, but also shoot the puck into his own net. So,
the turnovers with him sometimes are brutal.
But you look at, how many people we've seen on, around the NHL talk very highly about Severson. This must mean that he has a decent amount of value in the trade market. And I think that the Devils are going to definitely consider it. And I don't think one of those 3 guys, or even possibly 2 of those 3 guys that I mentioned, are going to be here after next season. It does make you start to wonder about that, because now you're kind of logjam on the right side a little bit. And I think you're going to have to move that around a little bit. But if you get an opportunity to get a really quality top six right winging goal scorer, and you could get it in a deal with Damon Severson, I think you pull the trigger on that. I don't know who I'm talking about necessarily, or who's going to be out there. I know that it'll be more than just Severson, but I think that it definitely opens up a lot of speculation. And I think the Devils, like you said, John, I don't think they're done. I think that there's still a lot of work to be done. And obviously we'll have a more clearer picture of this team by the time we get to training camp and go from there. But I would definitely say signing Andre Palat and trading for John Marino are both together my favorite moves that Fitzgerald has done so far this offseason.
All right, last one. Is there any player that might be a little bit off the radar as far as making the Devils right now? A younger guy maybe that you think could steal a spot in camp, or maybe surprised by, being an impact player for New Jersey this year?
Well, I'm not going to say Alexander Holtz, because I think that the expectation is that he should make the team this year out of camp. And I think that's been his whole plan this offseason.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Simon Nemec, because we were just talking about him, because he's a guy that he's definitely playing in North America next season. It's a question of, how is he going, because he's going to be in training camp. How is he going to perform once he gets to training camp and plays a little bit of NHL preseason games? How is he going to perform? Is he going to look like a man amongst boys, type of thing? Is he going to come right away and make an impact? How is this going to work? And it will definitely also create some question marks, is that if Nemeth makes the team out of camp, that definitely means one of those four right shooting defensemen are going to end up being moved. And it's not Dougie. It's not going to be Marino and Nemeth. So who's the odd man out? Again, Damon Severson. Yeah. So again, this brings back my point, but I would say it's probably Simon Nemec. The other guy I would probably say, although it seems more likely he'll make the team, is Fabian Zetterlund, because he had a great season last year in Utica, a guy with a lot of speed, a guy who's he shoots the puck like he's kind of whipping it right at the net. He just kind of pulls it back and just whips it. Yeah. At the goaltender. And even when he played in the NHL a little bit, he had a lot of success. Yeah. So that shows you that he has a lot of confidence coming in to it. So I think that it's going to be one of those two guys. And I'm looking around at the roster, and I'd say there's so many different guys. I'd say maybe a Graham Clark, maybe a Kevin Ball on the left side on the defense. The Devils are creating a lot of competition for spots, and that's going to be beneficial to the veterans and to everybody within the organization. I think that's the biggest thing that excites me about Tom Fitzgerald, is that he creates so much competition within the organization. But to go back to your question and answer, I would say probably if I had to choose one, it would be Simon Nemec. Okay, awesome. Well, Neil, thank you so much for coming on today. This was an awesome chat about New Jersey, and I learned a lot here about the Devils, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And if you got anything you want to plug, have at it, man. Appreciate you coming on. Well, first and foremost, again, John, thank you so much for having me on. This is a lot of fun. You can check out the Devil State of Mind podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Just anywhere you go, search it up. New episodes every Monday and Thursday, covering all things New Jersey Devils. You can follow us on Twitter at Devil State, Instagram at Devil's State of Mind. And also don't forget to like us on Facebook as well. Just search Devil's State of Mind podcast. Follow me on my personal Twitter, THENVPSHOW, and my personal Instagram at NVPQB11. And go check out the Hockey Podcast Network YouTube channel, THPN. I've done a lot of live streams, live watch alongs over this past year. Going to continue to do that going into next season. Make sure you guys go like and subscribe. We're almost halfway to 3,000 subscribers. So continue to help support us and like it and do everything. And don't forget to sign up for DraftKings and use our promo code when you sign up, THPN. But other than that, John, this was an absolute pleasure, man. And I thank you so much for letting me come on and talk some Devils hockey. This was a lot of fun. Of course, everybody, you heard it here. Go support Neil and everything that he's doing right now in the Hockey Podcast Network. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and hope you guys enjoyed this video discussing the New Jersey Devils. And I'll be talking to you all very, very soon.